Third-party interference in marriage refers to the involvement of individuals outside the marriage, such as friends, family, or even romantic interests, which can negatively impact the family. Now, looking at this interference can manifest in various ways, including emotional manipulation, unsolicited advice, or even direct involvement in conflict. It often creates that tension and can lead to misunderstandings or feelings or mistrust between partners. Hello and welcome to Inside Today. I am June Mai Manson. The program continues shortly. Stay tuned. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is Inside Today on Global Television, and we're going to be looking at family interference, third-party interference when it comes to relationships or marriage. Like I said, I am today on the program, I am being joined by Mrs. Esther Omemka. She is the Executive Director, Starcrest for Women in Africa Foundation. She's a maritime lawyer, certified arbitrator. Now, you are welcome to the program, Mrs. Esther. It's great to have you on the program.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Now, we're talking about third-party interference. Well, what are the pros, what are the cons when it comes to that?
Before we get into the pros and the cons, it's important to understand that third-party interference can either be negative or positive.
True.
So we have to look at it from those perspectives. One of the pros, let's start with the pros actually. The pros are the positive interference. One of the positive interferences is that, okay, let's take for instance, newly married couple. When they get married, they're older people that have more experience than they do. And when they have problems that they don't understand, because of course this is a new terrain, how do you understand things that you've not even experienced before?
Very true.
Finding a trusted person that they can rely on to guide them through that particular phase will actually benefit that relationship.
Now, you know, people always say this. They say, do not allow anyone to interfere. You can actually figure it out. It doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. Once you start allowing individuals to come into your home, it becomes a norm. Then you see it as a normal thing to always tell people to come and butt in when it comes to family issues.
That's where boundaries come in. So you have to understand that nobody's an island of his own, and what you don't know, another person knows even more than you do. So getting the right kind of interference is actually very important for a healthy marriage. Without contradicting myself, I want to also point out that it is important for couples to be able to have time alone to figure things out by themselves. You understand me? But when you see, there's a thin line though. When you see that there's a situation that you need somebody that is more, experienced.
Exactly.
Then you can call for that help, and that help you're calling for should be somebody that has the best interest of that relationship at hand, not someone that is going to take advantage of that misunderstanding and of course find a way to tilt it to one side.
Now, you mentioned boundaries. How do you, like you mentioned from the beginning, we've been following, you said at the beginning, this is something new when it comes to being married for the first time, or individuals who have been married and yet they still have this topsy-turvy when it comes to the turbulence that happens in marriage. How do you set that boundary when it comes to family, when it comes to friends, like newlyweds? How do you set that boundary?
Let me take our environment, for instance. We are in Africa, and we already know that in Africa, marriage is sort of a communal thing. So it's between families.
True.
There's the mother-in-law, the father-in-law, brothers, sisters, and all of those people that feel like they have the best interest of their own siblings.
And not forgetting, sorry, Miss Esther, not forgetting that they have the right. They tell you they have the right to interfere.
Of course, we are in Africa. So, I mean, it's one of those things you're going to be seeing around. But yeah, we're talking about boundaries and how to navigate. I'm trying to narrow it down to the Nigerian context without actually depraving ourselves of our, customs and traditions. Okay, so for the couple that are involved in the marriage, I feel like the man should be the one to set boundaries around, okay, there are certain things, there are certain decisions that nobody else is allowed to butt in.
Okay.
This is a new family. Even the Bible says a man will leave his father and mother and cleave. There has to be a cleaving. So you have to cleave to your own wife to be able to set a new family. So you should have indices, you should have areas where nobody can cross. You have to protect your wife. Okay, so you make your siblings, your mom, your dad, all your in-laws know that, okay, there are certain things that you can't interfere. This is my own family. Your wife also has to know that she respects her family and has that boundaries. There are certain things I can't take out of this, my new family, to my own family I'm coming from. Yes, I was in this family, but now I have a new family.
Which I have to put together.
Which I have, and that family is the priority. That's the first place.
But let me give you an incident. There was an incident that happened. I will remember. I was in year 3. I would never forget. So I went to this household. I sat down, and she was like my mentor. She was supposed to put me through how it is now, preparing for your finals, and then you have there's this, I forgot what you need to write. There was something a journal I was writing on, and she was my mentor, an amazing individual. And then her mother was in the living room. And then the husband came in and says, he's going out to one of the cars, and the mother said, no, put the key down. Put it down. It's for my daughter. My daughter bought it. My daughter bought that particular car. You won't take it. Go. And then the look on her face, and I was like, I was really young. But at the same time, I knew that was not right.
That wasn't right.
And then these things happen. It all depends. Some people will tell you if the woman earns more, they feel it's the place of family to interfere and say, don't give him that space. You have to learn to, show that, all these sort of interferences, they happen. But does it have to do with only the man? Sometimes the woman who earns more, does it really matter? Don't you think she should, create that boundary for this family interference?
Yeah, I must say that finances and marriage is a very delicate subject matter, especially because in this part of the world, men are providers. And so most times people respect a man because of what he can be able to provide. But that's not even the biblical way. A man is the head regardless of whether you earn more or he earns more. Now that's where responsibility comes in.
Whose responsibility?
No, I want to talk about, I want to bring responsibility into the mix that, okay, if you have a responsible spouse that is doing his best within his means to provide for the family, he, he gives you your respect, he does his he caters to the responsibilities of the family. I think you should respect your husband regardless of how much you earn.
But
and then that situation where you talked about that car scenario, who even gave the mother the right to even have that kind
that
of
is what I'm saying, the boundary. And these things happen in African homes, especially when the woman earns much more than the man. The family takes it upon themselves that my daughter is the one that provides for this family. So you have no say. So that's what I'm saying. Boundaries should come in both ways. When it comes to the husband, when it comes to the wife. When you're talking to your family, please. In fact, and that is why they always say women should be careful with what they say. It's not everything that happens in your home that you come out and you say. And that was why the parents have the audacity to come in and say, no, put it down, the disrespect and all of that. And all of these things we'll see when it comes to marriage, when it comes to newly couples, or when it comes to things like this, especially the family interference. I'm not even talking about the mother-in-law now. That's a whole
different thing.
A whole new thing. Or some father-in-laws. I've not really heard cases of father-in-laws, making life unbearable, interfering when it comes to marriage, especially when this particular couple, they give birth to only female children. Look, that interference happens. Or a situation whereby the man is out of his job. Family interference happens. Or the woman, she's not educated. family interference. There are so many ways that interferences happen, and it doesn't go so well when it comes to a new family or a family that is still growing and all of that. But let's quickly go on a very quick break. We're talking about family interference, and the program continues shortly. Do not go anywhere. Stay tuned. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, it's Global Television, and yes, it is Inside Today, and we're looking at family interference. It happens in various ways when it comes to mother-in-laws, when it comes to siblings. Welcome back. It's a very emotional topic, and there was this instance that there was this particular individual that I was opportune to meet. And she told me that she got the beating of her life, not from her husband, but from her husband's sisters, who came to the house and said she had not given birth to any child, that she is a male also. And the husband, funny enough, has already made that boundary. And because I think he was the only male child of that family. So the women, they took it upon themselves, came all the way from Benin, came to the house, knew that the husband was not at home, and gave her the beating. We might be laughing about it now because now she has kids. It's not funny. She cried so. In fact, gave her the beating of her life and told her, leave. He's not going to leave. Okay, leave. How else do we want us to communicate? And these sort of things happen. Some, it's violent, like I've just mentioned.
Yeah.
Some, it could be verbal. It could have emotional, psychological effect on this marriage. And sometimes, family interference can actually cripple and break a marriage.
That's right.
Because with the pressure that comes with it, the man or the woman can yield. Now, let's look at this seriously now. What are the disadvantages? I know you said the advantage, which is good. You look at mentors, people that have been married for years, who can sit you down and tell you, this is how it is. You have to do it this way. You have to do it that way in order for your marriage to work. But the disadvantage that is involved, can you just talk a little bit about it?
So you see why I said family interference is something that has to be handled with care. Because sometimes it comes from a place of, you know, interest. You love your person so much, and then you're just trying to protect their own interest. But then again, that's where it gets dicey. How much interest are you willing to put into a relationship to break it instead of build it? Now, one thing that family interference does, one of the very negative aspects of family interference, is ego. So take it that a couple have a normal couple ruckus, and then one person takes it to their family, and the other person takes it to their family, and they're like, okay, why will you treat my daughter like this? And then the other person will say, okay, pack your things, let's go. Then you take the girl out of the house. And then the guy says, okay, why will my wife leave this house? Okay, I'm not going to go and get her. 1 week, 2 weeks. And then ego starts to play. Trust me, this couple that are involved in this thing, that wasn't even a very serious conflict that would have escalated to that point. But because other people got involved in it, this person is saying, okay, why would she even leave? This one is saying, I will not go and get her. The woman is saying, why can't he come and beg my people? And then they keep dragging and dragging. And before you know what is happening, they leave the real problem and they focus on ego. And the relationship is already broken. So you see why it's not everything that happens in a home that should go outside. Couples should build themselves up to the point where they can be able to sort out issues within themselves. Then it is when it is not able to be sorted out, then you get either good counseling from very good relatives, or maybe because we are very religious in this part of the world, so you can get from trusted religious leaders. And if that doesn't work, then you can do therapy. You can speak to a counselor, because the counselor is a third party that is, very, not biased.
Yes, he's mutual when it comes to issues.
So basically, African couples should just find a way to put boundaries in their relationship.
But Miss Esther, looking at this critically, is it just the African couple, for instance? What happens to the family and friends who want to interfere? What should we tell them? Like, seriously, is it everything that happens that you should practically lend a voice to?
I think people cannot destroy what they don't know about. So if you take your issues out, if you take every single thing your husband or your wife does, and you take it to a third party, then of course expect to hear things that will influence your relationship with that person. I'm not saying you shouldn't take things out, but then again, there are certain people that if their husband coughs, they'll say, my husband is. Certain people, that if their wife breaks something, my wife does. So when you're taking everything out to people, why won't they interfere? They would definitely interfere.
But let me ask, in a way, that's subtle. That's really subtle. But what if it comes to a situation where it has to do with the mental health of the woman or the man? When do you think family can actually interfere?
Now, this is a very, very important topic that I'm passionate about. One of the things we do at the Starcrest Foundation is the sensitization of women on mental health and how to protect themselves. Because, of course, when we're talking about gender-based violence, I'm going to bring this into this conversation.
Yes, it's very important.
It's not just physical most times. Sometimes it's emotional.
Psychological.
And the emotional affects the psyche. This is where it controls the outward. So most of the things you hear, when someone keeps talking you down, killing your spirit and all of that, it makes a person to go into different... Well, that's a whole different thing. I don't want to even go into it. That's a whole different topic. But then again, it is important as a woman. I'm going to talk from a woman's perspective. Sorry about that. I'm just very...
It's okay, but just create a balance.
So, I'm going to talk about the woman, then talk about the man. Of
because
course,
men go through this sort of
because
thing
women, we don't have power, we have mouths.
Yeah, exactly. And, there was a time on the program, it's just that I was opportune to speak to women and men about phones. And the women was like, we love you, that's why we're checking your phone. And the man was like, what you do not know
will not hurt you.
But at the same time, and they said they have emotional issues also. There are some women that make life unbearable for their spouse.
That's very true.
There are some women who do not have the understanding is not their watchword. I'm a woman, but I feel at the same time we should create a balance when it comes. Men have their issues. I say a real man will never raise his hands on a woman.
A real man knows when to leave the room.
A real man knows when to leave the room.
Yeah.
And when to say, that respect alone, it shows how well brought up a man is when he just says, not today, not today.
I'm not having this conversation.
I'm not having this conversation, I'm walking out. But some men will stoop to that low and hit a woman. And some men will stoop to that low and say all sorts to the woman, forgetting the fact that this was the woman that you fell in love with.
That you vow to protect.
You vow to protect. This is your friend. This was the one that brought happy times to when you got to this point, and you can make it forever if you want to. Now, there are some men also, like I mentioned, and there are some women also that make life unbearable. There's nothing the man does that is good. It doesn't matter even if he has been spending money and he doesn't have now, it is bad in her eyes. There are some women that will talk down at their spouse, even in front of friends and family members. There are some women that will make the man, the worst thing that you can ever do to a man is to reduce his ego. Once you bruise his ego, that is the end. There is no amount of I love you that can bring that back. It takes only the grace of God. That's why I said please create a balance, because it's a two-way thing here.
So as a mental health advocate, what I tell people is basically find a way, because like I was saying, your head, the psyche, that's the window, that's the doorway to where things like this come in. So you find a way to shut it off. So I can be having a conversation with you, but when I see that you're going into a direction where it's going to start affecting me negatively, I just switch off that, I turn off that, that flick there, and then I'm out. So you're saying all you're saying, it's not getting in.
Okay, but it's not everyone that has that gift, though.
It's emotional intelligence. You have to build it. When you see that the person you're with is someone that will not stop, most times some people will leave, they'll divorce. But there are other people, especially in this part of the world. When interference like this comes in, they're coming to tell you, okay, you have to work it out. You cannot divorce. Coming from a religious and then familiar background, they'll tell you have to be in this relationship. So when you find yourself stuck like that, what do you do?
You have to shut it out.
You have to shut it out, one. Secondly, you have to find a way to protect yourself. Start having affirmations to, boost your self-esteem again. Just look at yourself in the mirror and start saying, I am not this, I am not
bold,
that.
I'm beautiful, all of those right
it
words.
works. It actually works.
Yes, it does.
And then, of course, you find things that bring pleasure to you to do. I'm not saying the men should go and start becoming...
But that's what they want. That's what it is.
That's not the best way
some
to-
men would tell you that's the way to ease off stress. They become promiscuous and
And when it wears off, so what happens
they
next?
move to the next girl. That's what
Okay.
some men do, but I think that's not the answer.
No, that
And
is not.
Don't worry, men, I'm not judging you, but that's what it is. People tell you they find solace, but I think it's better you have a discussion. That's why communication is key.
But even when you're talking about having a discussion, you need to read the room. So there are times where discussion is not the best solution. That time you need to just team off, and then everybody gets clarity on the subject matter at hand. Because sometimes you have an argument and you forget why you are arguing. Other issues that have been neglected before just comes in and starts, clouding everything.
Okay.
But then you pause. When you see that the conversation is not making any headway, you pause and just take a breather. And then when everyone is calm, you come back and then you talk about it objectively. And then you sort the issues out.
Okay, I like the fact that you talk about it objectively and then you sort the issues out. Let's quickly go on a very quick break and then we'll be wrapping up the program. Stay tuned. All right, you are welcome back, and I hope you've enjoyed this particular segment. And like I said, I did not do this. I didn't do this alone. I did it with Mrs. Esther Omenka. She is the Executive Director, Starcrest for Women in Africa Foundation, maritime lawyer, certified arbitrator. No wonder she spoke so well about the men and women. She did justice, balance. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the program. I am so privileged. I am so honored for you to be here and talking about this issue when it comes to the balance of family interference. Now, it's very important that we know that family interference, there are consequences of such interference. It could be significant, potentially leading to a breakdown in communication and intimacy. Now, it's essential for couples to establish clear boundaries regarding outside influences and to communicate openly about their feelings. Addressing these issues directly can help straighten the marriage and ensure that both partners feel secure and respected in their relationships. And above all, please create a balance. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you all so much for being a part of Insight Today. Thank you so much, Barrister Esther Omenka, for being a part of the program. Have an amazing day ahead. Bye-bye.